Hi all, I'm Cullen Haynes and welcome to Ledger Legends, part of the Live with Cullen Haynes series. This is episode 9 if I'm not mistaken, which is very exciting. And my next guest is a self-confessed recovering chartered accountant or CA, has had many years in the finance industry, was a teacher as well, and is now changing the business world and world's consciousness as both a stress reduction specialist and a breathwork coach. Here from across the world and across the channel, can you please make very welcome my very dear friend, Mr. Thomas Beresford, bringing you on the stage. Thomas, how are you, sir?
Hi, Cullen. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here. And may I just say thank you, anyone, for tuning in, rewatching the podcast. We stream live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, X, every Wednesday. And it's an honor to bring you this show. And I'm looking forward to bringing you the podcast as it happens. So obviously, Thomas, it's going to be a great chat today. It's quite not unusual, but we don't get many recovering CAs on the show, which we'll get into, but also people that have studied under Wim Hof. And I'm a big follower, as you know, of breathwork, cold plunging. I do a few videos on the LinkedIn. So we're definitely going to get into that as well. So let's start off with what's happening in your world, mate, and what do you do in a nutshell? So tell us give us the skinny, the blow by blow.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? Try and keep it concise without babbling along. First and foremost, I'm a dad. I've got a 3-year-old daughter. That's my day job. And then everything else fits in around that. So I do my stress reduction and burnout workshops in and around that. And I'm also a local director for my old employer as they try to set up in Australia. So I still get to keep my hat one foot in the corporate world at the moment, which is nice. And yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell. That's it.
You're an absolute superstar, Monomer. You're an absolute superstar. And obviously, I want people, when they're watching this, just to take a moment. It's the drive home. It's the commute home. If there's one thing people can do when they're tuning into this, what is it, my friend? What is it, Thomas, when they're watching this?
When they're watching this, what would I say? How does the back of your elbow feel?
That's a good point. I like that.
Because it brings you right into the present. It's just a random part of the body that you never pay any attention to.
I love that.
And all of a sudden you're completely present in your body and you're actually here now. You're not thinking about anything else.
Be here now, which is most important, my friend. I love that. Yeah. If you could describe your life so far using just film titles in the 20 or 30 years you've been on this planet, how would you do that, my friend?
The titles or the topics or the kind of the content of the movie? I don't know.
You tell me, mate. You can interpret that however you'd like.
That's a really tough question. I saw it and I was like, oh, I don't even know how I'd answer that question. I honestly, where would I even start? Have you ever seen the movie Kes?
No, I haven't.
No, right. So there's a scene in there with the old PE teacher. I used to be a PE teacher, sports science.
Okay. Yes.
And there's a scene in there like this really old school PE teacher. And he's just kind of like just reminded me of what my old teachers used to be like, and it was almost like here's how not to do it anymore. That we don't teach like this anymore. It was hilarious, and so we've got this one scene. It's quite a famous scene. It's very funny. What else would I say? My life in a movie title. 3 Men and a Baby.
Perfect.
There's only one man in the moment, but you see the journey they go through, and I get it.
I'm feeling it too. We got 2 under 2. It's definitely no one tells you it's this hard. It's like a big secret until you have them, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. It's like yeah. You thought you were tired. You thought your days were busy. Now.
Someone said to me, Cullen, you thought you had no time when you had no kids. Wait until you have one, and then you thought you really had no time. Well, wait until you have a second.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It's unreal. And then what would I say? Let's pick another one. don't want dead space. I don't want silence. That's a really tough question, actually.
No, that's okay. It's good to get the brain work going. But while we're doing that, my friend, can you shed the mystery just in case someone's up? Oh, by the way, put your questions and comments in the chat. Is that accent? Is that a Liverpool accent that we can hear?
Well, you're close. I'm from a place called the Isle of Man.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little island in the middle of the Irish Sea that most people have never heard of. So I've got an influence of Irish, Scottish. My dad's from the Isle of Man. His mum was Irish. Liverpool's very close. So I've got a bit of a mishmash of accents. Yeah.
It's good. I bet no one asks if you're Canadian. Probably someone's actually asked that in the past, surely.
No, I've not had Canadian yet. Most people go for Scottish or Irish.
Oh yeah, there you go. It's a mix, but you're certainly unique and one of a kind, which is what we're talking about. And on that note, I want to talk about, because many professionals and companies come to you, I know, to level up themselves and their staff. What does it take to be number one in one's field by helping with doing this breath work and whatnot? Like, what does it take in your esteem? Because we've got many different measures.
To be number one, I can't speak from experience. I would not class myself as number one in my field. But what I would say is what's brought me success is being of service. Like, my attitude is, here's where I've been, here's how it helped me, here's how I think some of these tools can really help you. Don't leave it as long as I did to discover this stuff, It might seem really simple, but it's also really powerful. And so for me, it's about being of service and constantly staying curious and to improve. I'm always reading and learning new things about breathwork. There's lots of science around it now. Just staying on top of it and just being completely enthusiastic about it.
No, I love that. I think it's really grounding for people to hear that. I think people have got lofty ideas of what it means, but I think what you do is making people think of their elbow, bringing them back to a place that's probably the bit left of center of where they originally thought they should be. So I think that's great. And I wanted to dive in a little bit more. What sparked your interest from going not only from teaching to finance, but becoming a breathwork professional for professionals?
Yeah, well, if I give you a little bit of my story, I'll give you the story that I usually put into my workshops.
Please do. We've got people joining on LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. It's all happening. So we got an engaged audience.
So I usually start by saying, nobody knows what I've got under my shirt. And every time I get this sensation, I've got to press a button. It's 2010. I'm in KPMG, and the only person that knows what's happening is my manager. And to cut a very long story short, I get this strange sensation in my chest. I have to press this. Drop the machine back to the doctor, go to get the results, and he says, "Are you sure you pressed the button every time you got this sensation?" I said, "Well, I was working. I probably missed a few." And he said, "Oh, I thought you might have pressed it too often." I said, "No, I definitely missed some." He said, "Well, you've got a severe ectopic heartbeat. And that's an out of place. Ectopic means out of place. It's an out of place heartbeat." And I was like, "Well, what's caused that?" And he said, "Stress." Now, I'm a Taurus. I've got 3 younger sisters, so I'm a stubborn older brother. And my answer was what you might call typically male. "I'm not stressed." And he said, "Yes, you are. Your body's telling you you are." I said, "Well, I don't feel stressed." And he said, "Well, you are." And one of the points I tried to make is stress has got a marketing problem, because the guy who came coined the term, Hans Selye, he used the word stress, but English was his second language. He was Hungarian. And he said, "Actually, if my English had been better, I probably would have become known as the father of the strain concept." All he was trying to explain was we're under constant strain, and if you don't manage that well enough, it's going to have a negative impact on you. And so I use words like strain, overload, demands, pressure, to kind of get people to say, oh yeah, that's right. I have all that. I have lots of demands and I have lots of expectations on me, but I'm not stressed. Well, you are. It's just a different way of thinking about it. So anyway,
No, it's a good point.
Fast forward 8 years, 2018, stood in front of the doctor and he says, Thomas, if you want to have kids, you need IVF. I said, what? He says, you need IVF. He says, your count is low, you've got no chance. I said, I don't understand. He says, you're burnt out, your system is fried. And that was kind of a freight train to the face for me. I always wanted to be a dad, never wanted to be an old dad. And so I kind of, the stubborn side of me came up again 8 years later. At that time, I was a senior finance manager traveling around Europe doing this really glamorous sounding role, going to different locations and helping teams and, overviewing projects and blah, 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 and reviewing business plans for big investment projects. But my body was done. And so I went off on a bit of self-discovery. And in that year, I read Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep. That changed my life. That took sleep from being the thing that happened at the end of the day because I was so exhausted, I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. And I better close the laptop because I need to get up again in the morning. Took it from there to being number one on the priority list. And then that helped me and drive all of my boundaries, healthy boundaries. I fixed my nutrition. I fixed my exercise. And I also went on a new masculinity retreat. And in that retreat, we did a breathwork session. And it was 45 minutes of, that's it. And at the end of that session, 26 men in a room, the only way I can describe it is there was an overwhelming sense of catharsis. There was tears of joy, tears of sadness, just people just had a really powerful experience. And I used to use the word release, but I think it can often give the impression that in one session, everything's okay, right? But I now talk about it in a way and say, in that session, there was an opening up. So there was people in there who just opened up to themselves, opened up to their past, opened up to what they've been carrying around, allowed their body to come down a lot of levels. And what I say is, what I realized in that moment was breath work isn't the answer, but it's a huge missing piece. So we have a daughter, she's 3 years old, and I didn't need IVF. And so I can't make promises that it would have the same impact on other people. But what it gave me was a chance to take my nervous system from here down to down 10 levels, which is what we can't do as professionals. We sit on the couch at the end of the day and we know we should relax. And you're like, I'm going to check my phone. I need to check the emails. Your mind is racing. You're tired but wired. All of these phrases that we hear. And this is why I want to take it to my other sphere of influence, which is the corporate world, because people, everyone's got a lot to do. There's lots going on. There's lots of work. There's high demands. There's lots of pressure. There's lots of expectations and lots of responsibilities. And how do you do that? How do you find? And I always talk about micro moments, or moments of transition. You're walking from one meeting to the next. How do you reconcile yourself in 2 minutes? Or you're going to go and give a really important presentation, or you're going to go and meet a really important client, or you're about to have a really difficult conversation. You've just had a really difficult conversation. You got to go and switch on again. You've been consumed with a project for the last 2 hours, and you got to go and do something else. How do you transition in these moments between key things? And that's what I think really resonates with what I do. I teach really simple things, but they're powerful and they're effective. And so that's why my story is this is why I think it's important, because I didn't listen for 8 years. It took the news from the doctor to get me to finally go, do you know what? I think I should give my sleep more attention. And I think I should give my nervous system a bit more TLC. Because I got there, I rescued it in time, I think. So that's a little bit about me and why I do what I do.
I appreciate you sharing that there, Thomas. It's a very powerful, harrowing story. And I think a lot of people can probably resonate. And if you, maybe not you, whoever's listening or watching, maybe a friend that you know very closely, what kind of things can you share for people to kind of link up and go, that's happening to me, that were happening to you? Because I've heard stories of, partners in law firms just starting to shake and they don't know why they're shaking. Like, what are the other signs of burnout that people need to be aware of? You didn't even know that you were stressed. They think
No,
they're okay. Like, what are the things they should be looking out for? What are the telltale warning signs?
it's a really good question. I mean, there's lots of information out there about burnout and lots of theories, but ultimately, the common experience for people is you don't know you're burnt out until you've either been through it or someone tells you you're burning out.
Yeah.
And because you get so swept away by life. I use this analogy of the river. So a river starts in the mountain as a really small stream, and it starts to just trickle that way down the mountain. Other little streams join it, and other little streams join, and it gets wider and wider and bigger and bigger and deeper and deeper and more forceful and more forceful. And eventually it becomes this huge torrent of water as it makes its way to the sea. It's very easy to cross a stream. It's very difficult to cross a river at the mouth where it's just this huge torrent of water and you need help. And so the little streams are like our everyday stressors, the little things that just come at us as we go through our day, and it's just part of life. And stress is not something you can remove from life. Burnout is the mouth of the river. You've been swept away, and you haven't had a way of dealing with the constant demands and responsibilities of life, and you get swept away, and eventually the universe hits you with a big stick, and you either find you can't get out of bed anymore, you've lost all your passion for work, you just feel like you don't care, you've got no time for the people you care about, you get what we call compassion fatigue. People tell you their problems and you just like, and that's not normally you. Normally you would care. Normally you have this human response to people, but you just don't have it because your body is like, enough. You've got no resources left. And so I try to tell people that there's this thing called the stress cycle. In nature, when a deer gets chased by a lion and survives, it goes and lies down in a corner, shakes for 2 minutes to let all the adrenaline out of its body, then jumps up and runs away. We as human beings are very good at finding all of these different lions to chase us, but we're not very good at sitting down and completing the stress cycle. Give our body, give our nervous system a chance to just process, deal with, or regulate what has happened before we go into the next one. We go from one meeting to the next, back to back meetings, into the car, onto the email, onto the phone. We're walking, but we're listening to podcasts and we're doing all sorts. And there's no space. So what I would say is that will then manifest itself in you might be putting a little bit of weight. You might be really struggling to fall asleep at nighttime, or waking up in the middle of the night and struggling to fall back asleep because you've not given your mind any time during the day to process what's happening. It'll do it when you actually stop. So that's why when we sit down on the couch and we go, okay, and the mind goes, oh, now you've stopped. Here's all these things that you haven't thought about yet today. And your mind starts worrying, or it wakes you up in the middle of the night and then you start processing all of these things. And so I would just say, if you're struggling to relax, like if the thought of relaxation is, I need a glass of wine, or I'm exhausted. Like, no, that's not relaxation. That's coping with your situation. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well. I probably got off on a bit of a tangent there, but it's just that consuming aspect of life. And how much mental space do you feel like you get during the day to just think about things and reflect and put the phone down? Not because the phone is bad, but because maybe you haven't been separate from it for long enough. So yeah.
Well, I'd love to, like, we framed the problem and what people could be feeling, and no one knows it better than you. Used to work at KPMG, one of the big four accounting firms. You're preaching, you know exactly what my clients, both lawyers and accountants and other professionals, are going through. What do
Yeah,
they
yeah.
need to do to unwind at the end of a particularly tough day at work? Or how can they get themselves into a routine when before they start work, or maybe even during the day, to cope or alleviate some of that stress response?
Sit in a position. I'm going to do something with you now, right?
Let's do it.
Sit in your seat so you can take as big a breath as possible.
Okay, I'm going to sit up straight, right? Here we go.
Okay, just all I'm telling you is sit in a position, just take a big breath as possible. Just do that. Let it go. And often I'll do that after about 15 minutes into a workshop, and I'll say, do that. And everyone shuffles around and they all do what you did. They sit up straight, they roll their shoulders back, they get their chin lined up with their diaphragm, and they line their diaphragm with their pelvic floor. They don't know they're doing this. I just give you the instruction, your body does it. You put yourself in a position, because your diaphragm's attached to your spine, you straighten your spine so you can breathe fully, and you give yourself a chance to take a breath. It takes 10 seconds. And I guarantee that just by doing that, you're giving your nervous system a micro moment, a chance to just decompress a moment, like releasing the pressure out a little bit. And if you haven't got 10 seconds in your day, you need to radically overhaul your day. And so that's really simple, right? It's not difficult. You can always do that.
Science.
No, you've just written a big email. You've just been processing your emails, and now you've got to start work. Give yourself a moment. You've just been involved in writing a really important report. You've got to go and do something else. Just make it a habit of push your chair back, or if you've got a standing desk, take a step back. Literally take a step back from your desk. Give yourself one breath. Your nervous system will thank you. That's a really simple one. The other one that's really common, popular, is something called a physiological sigh. So you take a huge breath in through your nose. You do that. Then before you breathe out, you take a second breath in. You do 2 breaths in a row. In. So you take a big breath in, second breath in, pause, and then you do a big sigh. And then what will happen is, you've just told your nervous system you're really safe. The only time we sigh is when we're trying to decompress. We do it all the time. You hear people sighing all the time. You're like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? What's the problem? Because you know, intuitively, they're trying to relax. Because there's a dedicated circuitry in the brain devoted to sighing. So you can do that deliberately. It takes 10 seconds to do a double inhale and an exhale. And if you do it again, do it for me one more time and watch what happens. Do a big inhale through your nose. Go on, big. Take a second breath in. So take a second breath before you exhale. And pause. Now do a big sigh. And watch how long it takes for you to start breathing again.
It's quite a distance in between breaths. You have a little bit of a break.
You bring complete peace to your body. And again, that takes 10 seconds. So these things don't take long. And if you can find, like I say, moments of transition, that's a really good thing to do if you're about to go into an arena where you've got to be on your point. You've got to keep your nerves under wraps. So I know lawyers often have to go and, I don't want to use the word perform, but you have to go and be on your game as you're presenting cases. Maybe you're talking to clients. As you're about to go in the door, you take your nervous system down a few levels because you've just told it you're safe and you're okay. You can do it after difficult conversations. I'm kind of repeating myself, but there's lots and lots of little tools like this. So yeah, that's what I would tell people to try and do. Find little micro moments. And if you want to find things that take a bit longer, then you've got to commit.
No, I think you got to commit is the lesson.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be you need to put an hour aside. You just have to be, you almost have to become someone that says, I'm going to look after myself a little bit more, and I'm going to give myself 10 minutes. Pick a day, pick a time, before bed, when you first wake up, in your lunch hour, whatever it is, and you're just going to find something that helps you bring your nervous system down. Breath work, I always teach. Meditation is really popular. People can struggle with meditation because it's quite advanced for a lot of people to calm. They think they have to calm their thoughts, and that's not the case at all. The mind is like a bubbling pot of water. That's what it does. Right? You can't stop your thoughts. The point is to try and let the energy come out of that a little bit just by being still.
Absolutely illuminating, my friend. And I really appreciate some practical things that people can do. If you're re-listening or re-watching this stream, I highly recommend take the time to do it, because I already feel liberated just from the short time that we've done it. Marg Lang is tuning in. She's a leading business development specialist in Victoria. And she said, thank you for sharing this, Marg. 3 burnouts in 9 years. My last lasted 4 months. I get it. I couldn't get out of bed. I really appreciate you sharing that, Marg.
Yeah, thanks, Marg. Yeah. And it's just the cause, like I say, it just, all of a sudden you just find yourself in it. It's like you get swept away by a river, and before you know it, you can't get out and you need help. When you're at that point, you need help and support. And obviously all analogies break down eventually, but the point is you need someone to help you get out of the river. It often comes from people putting their own priorities at the bottom of the list. We give everything from ourselves to others, colleagues, our employers, our family, our friends. That it's because we're human and we're good. It's what we do. But the consequence of that is there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much space that you have. And so you say, well, I won't cook myself a dinner. I'll just grab something on my commute. That's okay if that's what you need to do. Also, it's not how we've evolved in the last few 100,000 years. I'll get by on 5 hours sleep. I probably need 7 or 8, but 5 will do. We borrow the things that we need: sleep, food, and rest. 3 most important things.
Right.
We think we can borrow and pay it back. The problem is it's very difficult to pay it back.
You're building up that debt.
Yeah, exactly. Very difficult to pay it back.
Well, as we come to the end of the stream there, Thomas, I got my little one coming in here. What can individuals and companies do for their staff? Like, how can people get in touch with you? What can we do? Yeah, Benji, that's a good thing. What can we do? What can people do to help themselves and their companies to help their staff get in touch with you there, Thomas?
By all means, get in touch with me. I have my own website, Breath Space with Thomas. Contact form on there. That's the easiest spot. It's got my social links on there. Like you with a little one, it's very difficult to stay on top of socials. I maybe get an hour to myself in a day, and that's about it, which is fine. That's my job. That's my main job. Yeah, exactly. My daughter's been on quite a few podcasts and meetings, and I think, look, like I said at the start, breath work isn't the answer for everybody, but it's certainly a missing piece. The problem we have is it's not that we don't know how, it's that we don't know that we can manage our emotions a bit better and manage our nervous systems. And it sounds that it can be quite daunting, or breath work sounds a bit woo-woo. That's what I often encounter. And I often say, look, I don't have any crystals. I don't turn up in robes. I don't start burning incense. Maybe that's down the path for you. When I teach meditation classes, I keep it really simple, because what I've tried to think is my voice, or my job seems to be, I'm opening a door for people to say, here, try this. This is quite simple. Give it a go, and then see where it takes you. And some people might go off on a more spiritual path. Some people might gravitate to meditation. Some people might like to go into the science. But I like to try and make it as accessible as possible for people. And yeah, so by all means, reach out to me through my website, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Like you, I like connecting through professional.
Love a bit of LinkedIn. Come
on.
And
I do all sorts of. I've done hybrid workshops. I've streamed live. I've done purely online workshops. They're different. I've done in person, lying down in a room. They're really powerful. I work with individuals as well if they're interested, you know, to kind of, if you want something a bit more bespoke and intimate, by all means. But ultimately, I want to share with people, look, here's the kind of things that you can do, and here's how you can actually feel. And the most common thing at the end of my workshops, when I get into a full breath work, they sit up and I say, how do you feel? And they go, light. And I'll ask them, how is your mind? And they'll go, it's really clear and quiet. And when I ask a busy executive, when was the last time you felt like that? Usually the answer is, I don't remember.
And that's the scary thing, right?
Yeah.
If you don't remember, then that's probably too far away. Then it's probably good to bring it in.
And it's not that I want to scare people, right? You know, and there's I mean, but you think about it, if you meet someone who surfs a lot, they're like the calmest people in the world, right? They're just really calm and relaxed. And because they spend they spend time in nature by themselves, they spend time being in the moment. If you're a surfer, you have to be in the moment. You can't be thinking about the future when you're out at sea. And so they spend a lot of time, so they're very calm. And find your own thing. Maybe it's walking in nature, maybe it's taking your dog for a walk, maybe it's going out with the kids, like whatever it is, but give yourself something that actually feels like you're just being a bit more of a human being and relaxing. And yeah, breath work is one of those tools that I like to teach people to do that.
We're not human doings, we're human beings.
Precisely. Precisely. I mean, the biggest influence that's been on me, maybe spiritually, is Alan Watts, and he talks a lot about that. He talks a lot about we're a human being, not human doings.
He's a mentor. He's got some great books out there. I've got them out the back, so I'm going to have to get into some Alan Watts after this there. Thomas, look, really appreciate you sharing your insights, being part of the Ledger Legends episode 9. And I think if anyone tunes in or re-listens, please get in touch with Thomas. Check him out on his website, and I think you'll be all the better and lighter for it. So breathe in, everyone.
Yeah, breathe in and then let it go and keep your breath moving.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining in there, Thomas. Good man.
Thank you, Cullen. Take care. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.